In today's world, emotional attachment is one of the biggest challenges we face. Whether it's in relationships, career goals, or personal desires, we often find ourselves deeply connected to things we can't control. This can lead to anxiety, disappointment, and emotional pain when things don't go our way. But what if there was a better way to navigate these attachments? A way to maintain inner peace no matter what happens around you. Enter Stoicism, the ancient philosophy practiced by the likes of Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus. Stoicism teaches us that emotional detachment is not about becoming cold or indifferent. Instead, it's about recognizing what's within our control and letting go of the rest. It's about mastering our emotions, rather than being mastered by them. And no one expressed this more clearly than Marcus Aurelius in his personal writings, which have survived for centuries and continue to offer powerful lessons in emotional resilience. In this video, we'll explore how to emotionally detach like a Stoic, drawing directly from Marcus Aurelius's teachings. We'll cover 7 core lessons that will help you let go of what you can't control, reduce unnecessary suffering, and focus on living a life of purpose and inner calm. Whether you're dealing with a breakup, a difficult job, or any other emotional turmoil, these Stoic principles can serve as a guide for you to reclaim your peace and navigate life's challenges with strength and wisdom. So let's learn into the Stoic wisdom of Marcus Aurelius and discover how to emotionally detach, not as an escape, but as a way to live with greater clarity and fulfillment. Lesson 1. Understand the nature of things. One of the key teachings of Stoicism is to understand the true nature of things. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, frequently reminded himself that everything in life is temporary and subject to change. This realization is foundational to emotionally detaching from external events, people, or outcomes. When we deeply understand that nothing in life is permanent, we can begin to free ourselves from unhealthy attachments. Think about how often we become attached to things that we have no control over: relationships, jobs, material possessions, or even how others perceive us. These attachments can lead to emotional turmoil when they don't go as we expect, or when we inevitably lose them. By accepting the transient nature of life, we are better equipped to handle these changes with grace and resilience. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Everything that exists is in a manner the seed of that which will be." This reflects the Stoic understanding that life is a constant cycle of birth, growth, decay, and renewal. Everything we experience is part of this natural cycle, and resisting it only causes suffering. Detachment in the Stoic sense is not about becoming indifferent or unemotional. It's about accepting reality as it is, rather than as we wish it to be. This lesson is particularly powerful when it comes to relationships. People come in and out of our lives, and while the emotional bonds we form can be meaningful, they are also impermanent. By understanding that relationships will naturally change or come to an end, we can enjoy them fully while they last without becoming overly dependent on them for our happiness. This doesn't mean we stop caring. It means we stop clinging. To practice this kind of emotional detachment, start by reminding yourself regularly that change is a natural part of life. When something you value is threatened or lost, take a moment to reflect on its impermanence. Recognize that everything, including your emotions, is in a constant state of flux. By viewing life through this lens, you can begin to let go of your need to control external circumstances and instead focus on what you can control: your response to them. Lesson 2. Focus on what you can control. One of the central principles of Stoicism is learning to focus on what is within your control and letting go of what is not. This lesson is crucial for emotional detachment. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, frequently reflected on the importance of discerning between the things we can change and the things we cannot. He believed that by mastering our thoughts and actions, we can free ourselves from the emotional turmoil that often accompanies our attempts to control the uncontrollable. At its core, this lesson teaches us to direct our energy inward, focusing on our own behavior, decisions, and attitudes. Everything else, other people's opinions, external events, outcomes of situations, is beyond our control. By attempting to control these external factors, we only set ourselves up for frustration, disappointment, and emotional distress. Stoicism encourages us to accept this truth and shift our focus toward the things we have genuine power over: our thoughts, our choices, and our reactions. For example, imagine a scenario where you're working hard to achieve a promotion at work. You put in the effort, meet all the requirements, and go above and beyond in your role. However, despite your best efforts, the promotion goes to someone else. In this situation, a non-stoic response might involve emotional attachment to the outcome, leading to frustration, resentment, or self-doubt. But from a stoic perspective, you would recognize that the decision to promote someone is ultimately out of your hands. What was within your control was your dedication, effort, and attitude throughout the process. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This means that by accepting the limits of our control, we free ourselves from unnecessary emotional suffering. Rather than obsessing over outcomes, we learn to focus on our own internal state and how we respond to life's challenges. This lesson applies to relationships as well. You cannot control how someone else behaves or feels about you, but you can control your own actions and how you choose to respond to their behavior. If someone treats you poorly or doesn't meet your expectations, detaching emotionally means understanding that their actions are outside your control. What you can control is your reaction, whether it's setting boundaries, choosing to walk away, or responding with patience and understanding. Incorporating this stoic practice into daily life can drastically reduce the stress and anxiety that come from trying to control the uncontrollable. By focusing on what you can control, your own thoughts, actions, and reactions, you can detach from the emotional roller coaster caused by external events. This creates space for inner peace, allowing you to navigate life's ups and downs with greater clarity and resilience. Lesson 3. Practice negative visualization. Negative visualization, or premeditatio malorum, is one of the most powerful tools in Stoicism for developing emotional detachment. This technique involves mentally preparing yourself for worst-case scenarios, not to dwell on negative outcomes, but to build resilience and reduce emotional dependence on outcomes that are beyond your control. Marcus Aurelius, along with other Stoic philosophers like Seneca and Epictetus, frequently use this practice to cultivate a sense of inner calm, regardless of what life threw at them. The idea behind negative visualization is simple. By imagining the loss of the things you value, you can reduce your attachment to them and in turn, appreciate them more fully while you still have them. This practice helps you to face potential challenges with a clear mind and heart. If you've already mentally prepared for the worst, you won't be caught off guard or overwhelmed by emotional distress when things go wrong. Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself of life's uncertainties. He wrote in Meditations, "Begin each day by telling yourself, 'Today I shall meet with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness.'" He didn't dwell on this thought to bring himself down, but to accept the reality that life will bring challenges, and people will not always behave the way we wish. By preparing for these negative experiences, you develop emotional detachment, allowing you to navigate life without becoming consumed by frustration or disappointment. For example, think about your relationships. Imagine that one day, you might lose a loved one or experience a breakup. This doesn't mean that you should become indifferent or unloving, but by mentally preparing for the possibility, you detach yourself from the overwhelming fear of that loss. In turn, this helps you appreciate your loved ones more fully, knowing that nothing is permanent. Negative visualization also applies to material possessions. By imagining life without your most prized possessions, you reduce your emotional dependence on them. This can help you handle actual losses with grace and perspective, rather than panic or despair. Stoicism teaches us that losing something we care about isn't the end of the world. It's a natural part of life's ebb and flow. Additionally, this practice allows us to face life's inevitable difficulties with greater courage. By visualizing what could go wrong, you prepare yourself mentally and emotionally, reducing the shock or devastation when those difficulties actually arise. Rather than being overwhelmed, you remain grounded, calm, and resilient in the face of adversity. Incorporating negative visualization into your life helps you detach from the fear of loss and prepares you to face life's uncertainties with grace. Instead of being blindsided by the unexpected, you meet challenges with a balanced mind, ready to respond wisely and with emotional strength. Lesson 4. Reflect on mortality. Memento mori. One of the most profound teachings in Stoicism is the concept of memento mori. Remember, you will die. While this may sound morbid or uncomfortable at first, reflecting on mortality is actually a powerful tool for emotional detachment and living a more meaningful life. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on the fleeting nature of existence, not to cultivate fear or anxiety, but to bring clarity and perspective to his decisions and actions. In Meditations, Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This reminder of the impermanence of life isn't meant to depress us, but to inspire us to live more intentionally. By regularly reflecting on the fact that we and everyone we know will one day die, we detach ourselves from trivial concerns and emotional attachments that ultimately don't matter. It helps us to focus on what truly counts, living in alignment with our values and making the most of the present moment. Memento Mori teaches us that time is our most valuable resource. Many of us get caught up in worrying about the future or regretting the past, but the Stoics believe that true emotional peace comes from living fully in the present. When we reflect on the fact that life is short, we gain a sharper sense of urgency to spend our time wisely. We stop worrying about minor setbacks, petty conflicts, or things beyond our control because, in the grand scheme of life, they are insignificant. This practice allows us to detach from the need for constant success, recognition, or control, and instead focus on living well in the here and now. When it comes to relationships, reflecting on mortality can help you appreciate the people in your life more deeply. The knowledge that every relationship will one day end, either through separation or death, helps you detach from clinging to others. Instead, you can cherish the moments you have with them without the fear of losing them dominating your emotions. As a result, you live with a sense of gratitude, valuing relationships for what they are in the present rather than being anxious about what they might become in the future. Memento Mori also encourages us to pursue our highest purpose. When we remind ourselves that life is finite, we are less likely to waste time on distractions, trivialities, or unworthy pursuits. Instead, we focus on what matters most, living virtuously, helping others, and striving to become the best version of ourselves. Lesson 5. Accept loss as part of life. Loss is an inevitable part of life, yet it is something that many of us struggle to deal with emotionally. Whether it's the loss of a relationship, a job, a loved one, or even our health, we often react with intense emotional suffering when faced with loss. Stoicism, however, offers a different approach, one that enables us to detach from the pain and accept loss as a natural part of life. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, provides profound insights on how to confront loss with serenity and emotional balance. One of the core teachings of Stoicism is the idea that everything in life is temporary. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight." This quote reflects the Stoic belief that everything around us, including our relationships, possessions, and circumstances, is constantly changing. Trying to hold on to things as if they were permanent only leads to suffering. Instead, Stoicism encourages us to embrace the impermanence of life and accept that loss is part of the natural order. By internalizing this concept, we can begin to detach emotionally from the things we fear losing. It doesn't mean that we stop caring or become indifferent, but rather that we accept the reality that loss is inevitable, and fighting it only brings more suffering. When we stop resisting the natural flow of life, we open ourselves to peace and resilience. For example, in relationships, many people struggle with the fear of losing their partner or friend. This fear can lead to unhealthy attachment, anxiety, or even possessiveness. Stoicism teaches us to cherish relationships while they last, but also to accept that they may end one day. This mindset doesn't make the relationship any less meaningful. In fact, it allows us to enjoy it more fully because we're not consumed by the fear of losing it. Accepting that relationships are impermanent helps us detach from the unhealthy emotional dependence on others for our happiness. When it comes to material possessions, Stoicism encourages us to view them as borrowed rather than owned. Everything we possess can be taken away at any moment, and by accepting this, we detach ourselves from the fear of loss. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that it's not the loss itself that causes suffering, but our reaction to it. If we accept that everything is subject to change, we can face loss with a calm mind and heart. In essence, accepting loss as part of life is about recognizing the transience of all things. By embracing this truth, we can detach from the emotional suffering that comes with loss and live with greater peace and resilience. Instead of clinging to what we cannot keep, we learn to appreciate life's fleeting moments while they last and let go when it's time. Lesson 6. Cultivate indifference to external praise or blame. One of the key teachings in Stoicism is the idea of maintaining emotional equanimity, regardless of external praise or blame. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, frequently reflected on the importance of cultivating indifference to the opinions of others. He recognized that allowing ourselves to be swayed by praise or criticism leads to emotional instability and distracts us from living according to our own values. To emotionally detach in a Stoic manner, we must learn to remain unaffected by the judgments of others. Stoicism teaches that the opinions of others are beyond our control and therefore should not dictate our internal state. People will praise you one day and criticize you the next. If your sense of self-worth is dependent on their approval, you will find yourself on an emotional roller coaster, constantly seeking validation and fearing disapproval. Marcus Aurelius believed that the only approval worth seeking is your own, which should be based on how well you live in accordance with your values and principles. He wrote, "I have often wondered how it is that every man loves himself more than all the rest of men, but yet sets less value on his own opinion of himself than on the opinion of others." This highlights a common human tendency to care more about what others think than what we think of ourselves. For the Stoic, emotional detachment means breaking free from this tendency and focusing inward, on self-respect, integrity, and inner peace. One way to cultivate indifference to external praise or blame is to remind yourself that other people's opinions are based on their own perceptions, biases, and limited understanding of who you truly are. Their praise doesn't make you better, just as their criticism doesn't make you worse. It's important to remember that external judgments are fleeting and often based on superficial or incomplete information. By recognizing this, you can detach emotionally from the need for validation and focus instead on your own sense of worth, which comes from living in alignment with your principles. For example, consider a situation where you receive criticism at work. Instead of feeling hurt or defensive, a Stoic would calmly assess the feedback, determine whether it is constructive or not, and adjust their actions if necessary. If the criticism is unwarranted, they would remain unaffected, knowing that their value isn't diminished by someone else's opinion. Similarly, if you receive praise, the Stoic approach is to accept it with humility, recognizing that it doesn't define your worth or dictate your actions. By cultivating indifference to external praise or blame, you free yourself from emotional turbulence and gain the ability to stay grounded in your own sense of self. This detachment allows you to live with greater inner peace, focusing on what truly matters, living virtuously and according to your values, rather than being swayed by the ever-changing opinions of others. Lesson 7. Remind yourself that everything happens for a reason. The Stoic principle that everything happens for a reason is rooted in the belief that life is governed by a universal order, sometimes referred to as logos or rationality. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on the interconnectedness of all events in life, believing that each experience, whether good or bad, serves a purpose in our personal growth and in the larger scheme of the universe. Understanding and accepting this concept can help us detach emotionally from the ups and downs of life, allowing us to maintain inner peace regardless of external circumstances. In his Meditations, Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself to trust in the natural order of things. Whatever happens at all happens as it should. You will find this true if you watch narrowly. For the Stoic, the universe operates according to a rational plan, and everything that occurs is part of this plan. While we may not always understand why certain things happen, accepting that there is a reason behind every event helps us let go of resistance and emotional turmoil. This doesn't mean that Stoics are passive or indifferent to life's challenges, but rather that they accept events as they are and work with them instead of against them. When we remind ourselves that everything happens for a reason, we can detach from the emotional suffering that often accompanies disappointment, loss, or failure. If a relationship ends, for example, a Stoic would acknowledge the pain but would also understand that this event fits into the larger picture of their life. By trusting that this change serves a purpose, perhaps it provides an opportunity for personal growth, or maybe it clears the way for a better relationship in the future. They can move forward with resilience and calm. This mindset also applies to failures or setbacks in career or personal goals. Instead of feeling crushed by a missed opportunity, the Stoic perspective encourages you to reflect on what this setback is teaching you. Perhaps it's guiding you to improve your skills, rethink your approach, or redirect your energy toward a more fulfilling path. By viewing obstacles as part of the universal plan, you can emotionally detach from the sting of failure and instead focus on the lessons it brings. This lesson empowers us to respond to life's challenges with gratitude and acceptance. Instead of resisting what happens, we learn to flow with the events of life, trusting that every experience, whether we perceive it as good or bad, plays a role in shaping our character and leading us toward personal growth. In embracing the idea that everything happens for a reason, we cultivate emotional detachment and resilience, allowing us to navigate life's twists and turns with grace and strength. Emotional detachment, as taught by Marcus Aurelius and the Stoics, isn't about becoming numb or indifferent to life. Rather, it's about learning to navigate life's inevitable challenges with wisdom and grace. By understanding the nature of things, focusing on what we can control, practicing negative visualization, reflecting on mortality, accepting loss, cultivating indifference to external praise or blame, and trusting that everything happens for a reason, we can free ourselves from the emotional turmoil that often disrupts our peace. These 7 lessons from Stoicism offer us a roadmap to achieving inner calm, even in the face of life's uncertainties. By integrating these principles into your daily life, you'll find yourself less affected by external circumstances and more focused on what truly matters, living a life aligned with your values and personal growth. Emotional detachment doesn't mean caring less, it means caring wisely, without becoming overly dependent on things that are beyond your control. If you found these Stoic lessons helpful and want to continue your journey toward mastering your emotions, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to Stoic Mastery. By subscribing, you'll stay updated with more content on Stoicism, self-improvement, and how to live a life of purpose and tranquility. Don't forget to share this video with anyone who could benefit from Stoic wisdom. Remember, emotional mastery begins within. With these timeless lessons from Marcus Aurelius, you can start to detach from the emotional chains that hold you back and embrace a life of peace, resilience, and true fulfillment. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.